Hi everyone, I'm Hannah.
I'm Shani.
And we're back with another countdown.
Yeah.
So this time we actually want to do something a little different. A lot of our videos before have been about our opinions on musicals. So we decided to do something a little different. We're going to give you our top 10 opening songs, but this time we've done something a little bit different with them.
Yeah, this time we've actually got criteria and assessed objectively why these are some of our favourite opening numbers.
Yeah, so these aren't necessarily the ones we love the most, but they're just ones that actually do what we think is really important for musicals.
And of course, we are only talking about musicals that we've seen, so if we leave off your favourite, it just means we haven't seen it, probably.
Yeah, and obviously leave us a lot of messages in the comments because we would love to hear what your favourite musical numbers are and which ones you think are the best. So before we get started, we'll just reel off a bit of the criteria. We want we'll talk about the themes, the sort of musical motifs that we get,
and how well each number establishes either those themes, those settings, the characters, or the conflicts of the musical itself.
And also sets the tone for what you're going to see after this.
Yeah.
So that said, we've got a couple of honorable mentions about songs from opening musicals that weren't actually that good in objectively, but that we love anyway.
Yeah.
So you can start.
Yeah, the two I chose were Jellicle songs for Jellicle Cats from Cats, purely because it is an incredible dance number and it does sort of establish what you're getting into, even if it doesn't establish much character or plot.
But the problem is that Cats doesn't really tell a story anyway, so it wasn't really something we could put on our list, even if we thought it was good.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the other one I chose was Willkommen from Cabaret. It definitely establishes the setting and the tone, but it doesn't tell you much about character or plot.
Mm-hmm. As for me, I chose two songs that are pretty specific to me. My number one is Oh My God, You Guys from Legally Blonde, which, if you have not seen it, it is a wonderful musical and also a good movie. I chose this one because it's bright, it's funny, it's high energy, it's got a bit of an idea of where the story is started, but the thing is, it's not really important after the second song. And you'll see why if you get around and seen the musical. And my second one is actually Aquarius from Hair. If you have not seen this, give it a watch. It's about the Vietnam War. It's very much a period piece, and it's sort of establishing a little bit of the setting about because it's about a band of hippies. The song continues to say this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, which is about the age of peace and love, friendship, and mostly eccentricity. And my star sign is also Aquarius, so there's that. So without further ado, let's get on to the actual list. Number 10.
Ex-Wives
from 6. We didn't originally have this on the list, but we're pretty glad to have it on here now. For those of you who don't know, 6 is about Henry VIII's 6 wives.
Yeah. The main reason it's near the bottom of the list is that Six the Musical is more of a concert than it is a play.
Yeah, it has a little bit of conversation between each song, but it's not really like that. It's more of a storytelling experience than a real musical, where each wife has their own song to explain how they feel.
But there's not really a plot or a setting to establish.
Yeah, this song basically introduces each wife and sort of what happens to them. And it continues having this particular chant of divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived, to symbolize what happened to each wife. And this is a great song as well. It's really, really catchy. We think it's really fun. It's basically, it's got a lot of, it's a very much a sort of pop style musical. There's a lot of the music feels sort of more like pop than anything else.
But it does exactly what it needs to do for its musical.
Yeah, and that's pretty important for this story. And but if you have not seen Six, don't worry. You can look at the soundtrack, and that will tell you everything that you need to know about the musical. So, yeah, give it a watch. Number 9.
Heaven on Their Minds from
Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm not a huge fan of this musical, but even I have to admit this is a good song.
Yeah, it's interesting in that it's one of only 2 musicals on this list where the antagonist gets to speak first. But we'll get on to the other musical a bit later in the video.
And this is, it's important because Judas is a character that needs quite a bit of complexity because he's supposed to be a sympathetic antagonist, even if he is the antagonist.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fears around Jesus back then and what he was going to do and how things are going to change around him. And
yeah,
a lot of people thought bad things were going to happen because of him. And this is a really good example of that. And it sort of gives you quite a lot of. I mean, anyone who's going into Jesus Christ Superstar probably knows what the end result is going to be.
But yeah, it paints Judas as actually being quite reasonable.
Yeah,
what he's doing.
Yeah, which I think is really important for that musical. And yeah, again, it establishes character, establishes conflict. Yeah. And as I said, it's a good song too.
And it's an interesting take on a well-known story.
And of course, this one actually does have a movie of it, so you shouldn't have any trouble getting a hold of it. Number 8.
No One Mourns the Wicked from Wicked.
And yeah, it's a great song. In this case, I'm not actually that keen on the actual orchestration. It's a really great opening song, but I wouldn't choose it as my favorite song from Wicked. I mean, there's a huge catalogue of great songs, and if you've seen Wicked, you'll know that. But No One Mourns the Wicked is basically setting up everything. The Wicked Witch of the West has just been killed, and everyone is celebrating. But then we get to this question of why she was wicked. What happened to this poor kid? And that's where and that's how we're sort of getting into this. We've got a bit of backstory. It's not her. I mean, we turn out it's not her fault that she was green, and she wasn't wicked at the beginning. And although we haven't learned much about her yet, and we're getting to that further into the musical, it still has a lot of setting and storytelling and sort of setting up for what's to come in the flashback that revolves around most of the musical. And of course, like a lot of great opening numbers, the song does come back later on. In this case, right at the end. And it becomes more and more emotional. And when you cast your mind back to the beginning, which the finale allows you to do, you really get a lot more sympathy and love for the character of Elphaba, and you sort of understand her in a way that is not easy to explain. So it's a good reason to try and find the musical for yourself. Luckily, there is a movie in the works, so yeah.
And there's also a book that is admittedly extremely different from the musical.
Yeah, where Elphaba really is considered wicked. And, it's I have seen the musical 4 times so far in the West End and up here in New Zealand. Hopefully it'll come back. But if you haven't gotten a chance to see it, there is again the soundtrack on Spotify, so go listen to it and you'll see what I mean.
Next song on our list
Number
is
7, The Stars Look Down from Billy Elliot.
Yeah. So Hannah hasn't actually seen Billy Elliot, but
actually I have, but only once, and I haven't really listened to the soundtrack since.
I've also only seen it once, but that particular song had a really big impact, probably because I performed it a bit in drama. classes, and it's really a protest song, and it sort of sets up the secondary conflict of the musical,
Yeah.
which is the miners' protests.
The strike.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, this was a huge political thing at the time.
During the Margaret Thatcher era.
Yes, and if you live in England, you'll probably know a lot more about Margaret Thatcher than we do. But we all know what kind of political figure she was.
But this song just has so much power and so many voices behind it, except for the small section near the end where we only hear from Billy, and that sort of hints at his internal conflict.
If you don't know, he was actually sent to boxing classes, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But he was more interested in the ballet classes in the end.
Yeah.
And as you know, this is a big conflict in the musical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said, I have not seen this for a long time, and I don't remember the song that well. But I've listened to the lyrics as well, just as preparation. So.
It's just too beautiful a song to leave off the list.
Yeah. Number 6, Miracle.
From Matilda the musical.
Yeah. If you have not read the book Matilda, I advise you to do so now. Even if you're an adult, it is actually a great story. And just so you know, this is not related at all to the movie, just the musical. Although there is a movie of the musical coming out on Netflix this month, and well, in New Zealand at least this month. Some of you probably will have already seen it, as it is out in some other countries.
Yeah.
The reason we chose this was mainly because it actually really, really suits Roald Dahl's opening in the book. If you have not read it, you won't know this, but the original narration is that no matter how horrible a child is, every parent thinks their child is the best and absolutely wonderful. And this is actually echoed in Miracle, because you know, it has the bunch of snowflake kids saying how their parents think they're wonderful, they're miracles, they're special kids, they're princes, princesses.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah, and then we have someone actually come out and saying one could hardly move for beauty and brilliance. Just as Roald Dahl himself did. As you might know, he was a bit of a strange person, and he was not very nice to children in general, apart from his own.
And then we have the contrasting perspective of Matilda's parents, who are very much not happy to be having a kid, and even less happy to find out that the kid is a girl.
Yes, well, Mom's worried because she's got her dance competition and she's missing it, even because she's 9 months pregnant. Apparently, she did not realize that she was pregnant at all until this point. And yeah, Dad just keeps complaining about a boy not having a thingy, and then realizing, oh, it's a girl. And as if you've seen the musical, you remember this, that the ending actually has Matilda come out and say what her parents think of her. And as you also know, Matilda is the kind of child any parent would want, usually. Yeah, but her parents just wanted to watch more TV and all those kinds of things. And yeah, this sort of establishes the themes both of Matilda herself and of the musical, and the idea that that not all that well, you know, child power. There are a few more songs further on in the musical that establish more themes, but this one had enough of a theme that we thought it really needs to be on the list. Number 5.
The Ballad of Sweeney Todd.
From Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. This is absolutely brilliant as an opening number, and if you haven't seen Musical Hell's video of top 5 opening numbers, go watch it now because she puts this as number 1. And
for good reason.
Yeah, for good reason. It starts off with sort of a creepy organ music, the kind of thing you'd hear in an old murder ballad, followed by this shrill factory shriek, this whistle. This will come back again and again over the course of the movie every time someone dies.
Yes, as will the song, The Ballad of Sweeney Todd, with variations on the lyrics.
Yeah, there's reprises everywhere. The last song also is another reprise. It's just basically over and over. Actually, sorry, not the Factory Shriek is not the musical in the movie. It's just in the musical. It's a really, but it is a very dark thing, and the story. It's all done. Both basically every version's done as an ensemble number, and some of it. Well, you probably know that Sondheim has a very what's the word?
Very ambitious way of writing things.
Yeah,
also he writes music for actors more than music for singers.
Yeah, I actually saw this done by the New Zealand Opera Company quite a while ago, and they did an amazing job actually. I personally know the guy who played Toby because we were at school together, but I digress. It was just really amazing to watch this. I was actually kind of scared when I watched it for the first time because of the music. The scare chords are just brilliant. And if you know the story of Sweeney Todd, you'll know why.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you haven't seen it, you know, if you get the chance to see it on the stage, see it. But if you don't, there's the movie. Also, sadly, none of the reprises or the song are in the movie. There is just an instrumental. However, just so you know, there was originally going to be that. They originally had the idea of having a graveyard and the Ghost of Sweeney's victims sing the song. Not sure why this was vetoed, but it's a damn shame because this is still the best song in the musical as well as setting the tone and theme perfectly. Number 4.
The Bells of Notre Dame.
Just so you know, this is very, very close. Oh, from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
This is so close to being number 5, but I got outvoted.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I can see why. It's very much a backstory that does so beautifully, and if you see the Disney version of the movie, you'll see why. I absolutely adore it.
Arguably, the Disney movie is actually the best version of the song, as the musical has yet to appear on Broadway or the West End.
And we both absolutely love the movie and consider it one of the best of the Disney Renaissance, even if it isn't as popular as many of the others earlier in that decade.
Yeah.
And so what it does is we have Clopin tell the story about the bell ringer of Notre Dame and how he came to be there.
It sets up Quasimodo's history. It tells us a bit of what Frollo is like as a person, and it really establishes the main theme of the musical: who is the monster and who is the man.
Yes, as it says at the end of the story, at the song. And along with that, one of the things I like the best about the movie is is actually the Latin choir. I don't know if you've noticed it, but if you haven't noticed it when you last saw the movie, go back and listen to it again, every single song, and you'll notice there's quite a lot of songs that actually have a Latin chorus in it. And in this case, they actually sing quite a few songs that you might recognize, including Kyrie eleison, when Quasimodo's mother dies.
Yeah.
Which means in Latin, Lord have mercy. This also comes back particularly in Hellfire, where you hear a prayer between Frollo's lines. And yeah, this is great because it does establish character, story, theme, and tone in such a bombastic, dramatic way.
That high note that Clopin hits at the end deserves awards all on its own.
Yes, and we have no idea why this didn't get a Tony.
Or a Best Original Song nomination at the Oscars.
Yes, because this was just one of the best things about 1996, apart from Shani's birth here.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you can see why we've chose this one. Before we get into the next pick, I just want to say these three were super close, and eventually this sort of just came down to personal preference. So number 3
is Too Much Exposition
from Your Own Town.
Yeah.
And I haven't actually seen this one, so I'm going to leave it to Shani to explain.
Yeah, it's a lesser known musical because it doesn't have a movie adaptation, but it is one of those musicals that's very much satirizing musicals and satirizing capitalism.
So it also
So, yeah.
satirizes the opening numbers.
Yeah, it's very tongue-in-cheek. And, yeah, the title is sort of self-explanatory, saying that other musicals bombard their audience with too much exposition and they're not going to do that. Well, they also actually do exactly that.
Yeah.
They introduce two important characters. They sort of half introduce the central conflict, and they introduce the setting, all while saying they're not going to give too much exposition.
It's a bit of a it's a good song and a good opening number. But the reason we didn't put it any higher is because it's not actually that catchy.
Yeah.
It gives you everything you need to know about the musical to come, which is the purpose of an opening number. But when you don't have exactly everything, you know what, you know, it doesn't draw you in as much, which is not what this opening number does. Then it's not quite as good as the number that does. Number 2.
Alexander Hamilton.
From Hamilton.
Remember how I said there were 2 songs on this list where the villain is the first person to speak? Well, this is the other one.
I will admit that I haven't seen the whole of Hamilton yet, which I know I'm ashamed. I should turn on my musical geek card immediately.
But yeah, this song does everything an opening number needs to do. It establishes most of the main characters. It gives Hamilton's entire backstory. It tells you how the musical is going to end, admittedly, but it's catchy. It establishes a melody that will come back time and time again. It sets up little character beats for the more eagle-eyed fans to catch on to later in the musical. And it's really just awesome.
And it's also got it's also catchy. And you know, to my American history buffs who really love American history and already knew this, I was a huge history buff, but I had no idea who Alexander Hamilton was until I watched this musical. And I'm really sorry about that, but he was a pretty amazing person, even if he wasn't a nice guy. And yeah, this is just what an opening number needs to do, and it actually is a good song as well, which is where number 3 fell down.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Beautiful.
From Heathers.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard this musical, don't feel bad. It is off Broadway, and it's never actually made it to Broadway, but it is on the West End, and and it was also based on a movie from 1988.
Yeah. It is a really, really good song because it does everything that all these other things do.
Yeah. It sets up the setting. It even says September 1st, 1989. And yeah, for those of you who don't know about Heathers, it's a high school movie that also goes into black comedy territory. And the musical follows this, but tends to soften the characters a little bit to make them a little more interesting, and does quite a lot more that makes it interesting.
Yeah.
So we get a bit of an idea of who some of the characters are. We get Veronica, our lead, and then we also get, you know, minor guys like
Kurt and Ram.
Yes, the 2 jerk jocks who
sweet, nice girl.
Yes, Martha, of course. And then we finally get the 3 Heathers.
Yeah.
That's Heather McNamara, who's head cheerleader, Heather Duke, who is head of the yearbook, and Heather Chandler, who is just considered
a big bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got all these characters, we sort of understand them, and we know where they are. They're in high school.
Yeah.
And we also get a bit of Veronica's motivation.
Yeah.
She says she'd give anything to be like the Heathers, who are never harassed and never made fun of. So we get this popularity thing already. And we also see her actually getting good with the Heathers by using her forgery talent.
Yeah.
So this sets up quite a lot of the story, and it also sort of explains who Veronica is and what she wants out of life.
Yeah. And it's another one where the melody motif comes back again and again.
Yes, the word "beautiful" is used over and over, as well as a melody that continues on, that comes up again and again, saying "I know, life can be beautiful," things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this comes up again in multiple songs, like the reprise of 17, Dead Girl Walking, all those kinds of songs. And yeah, if you haven't listened to the soundtrack of Heathers, give it a listen, because it tells you quite a lot of the story, but doesn't spoil too much.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you can't get to see the musical, go and watch the movie and then listen to the soundtrack. Although be aware there was a change in some of the songs early on.
But then you can listen to both the West End and Off-Broadway soundtracks.
Yeah, so if you want to see what was changed, just listen to both. And as for getting back to the actual song, it's actually really, really catchy and really, really beautiful, just like the song itself says.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it when I heard it, and basically you sort of get a lot of what you want to know about the musical and the tone as well. It's not black comedy yet, but it does give you a bit of an idea of what you're going to expect from the rest of the musical. So we have no idea why this isn't getting more attention and why it never went to Broadway, but we think it's definitely the best of the best in opening numbers.
Yeah, so that's our list, and until next time,
I'm Hannah.
I'm Shani.
Yeah, see you next time. Bye!